let's go ahead and get this started. By the way, I'm being joined by Robert Russell the Fourth, or Robby, as he likes to be called. He is a former member of the U.S. National Guard and a former M2 Bradley tank commander. I believe it's M2, or were you in the M3?
I was in the M3A2.
M3,
Yes.
okay. And also the author of the book Escaping Ukraine, of which I have a
Nice.
copy. Thank you very much, by the way.
Thank
And
you, Ryan.
very good read, I might add, and I'll probably ask you some questions about that. A lot of tell me, what else do I need to know about you, Robby?
Kind of just your normal run-of-the-mill patriot guy, Christian family. Father was in the military he retired as a major in the army, and that kind of set the track for me to want to do it. I just kind of want to be on the ground versus in a desk, if you will. So that's the main thing. Married with a kid, great friend support and work life, and just very thankful that I have a relationship with God, and that He just guides me through what I need to do because I need it sometimes. We all do.
I understand that absolutely. Now, did I catch correctly? You're working in law enforcement these days.
Yes, so I do. I work as a police officer, and I'm also going to be working full time, switching over to a deputy position here locally. So
That's pretty nice. This be sounds like it's right up your alley, actually, from everything I've been able to tell.
yeah, so it'll be a great upgrade. Thankful for the opportunity, but again, things are crazy out here, so I just
Of
kind of like
course.
to enjoy my time off, and
So,
reamp.
got a few days off, a week off, or you just, or is this just you're taking some time when you've just not working?
Yes, so I've actually got some time in between what my previous full time job was and going into this new role. So I get a little break, between the conditional offer and actually when my start date is. So
Sounds good. Excellent.
good
So tell me a
questions.
little bit about your experience as a Bradley commander. You were originally a driver, then a gunner, then the commander of a Bradley, correct?
Yeah, that's correct. You nailed it. So I was in a light brigade, and then we ended up being heavy at some point or mid because we had Humvees, and
Right.
then we went to the Bradley. And quite simply, it's just as time moves on and you move up rank and expertise. I'm one of the few specialists, I think, who sat in the commander seat of a Bradley and operated that system. Kind of a lot of responsibility at 22 years old, I would say. You don't know what you're doing half the time, but great experience, and didn't know that it would tie into the future like this.
Indeed, yes. And to be honest, the fact that they've got Bradleys fighting over in Ukraine is really been pretty impressive to me. I mean, they're even using
Yeah,
Gulf War, Desert Storm era Bradleys, not even the latest gear. You've seen
that's
that
right.
video, right? The one which shows the
Hmm.
Bradley taking out a, well, not taking out. I think that's the wrong word, but
Yeah,
chewing up a T-90.
sure. Yeah.
Um, what's your opinion on that? I mean, I could play it if you'd like, or I mean, you kind of know what we're talking about here.
Sure. Yeah, that is a wild video even for me. So there's like this resounding thing, and not to knock the Bradleys, but the infantry Bradley, without getting too detailed in it, is very different than the cavalry scouting vehicle. Just as one's mainly for troop transport and protection, the other one's
Right.
to kind of go seek hunter killer teams with Abrams. Okay, and so we have more tow missiles. There's we have 12 options of tow missiles versus five.
Right.
And those are mainly to go blow up tanks. That's the point. To see a main battle tank of Russia, like their prime one, I think it's the 90M, to
Yep.
be incapacitated by the main gun, a 25 millimeter cannon. Um, he knew exactly where to shoot, and I am so proud of the Bradleys these days and that crew of knowing where to hit it. And you can see the driver backing up and moving constantly forward, backward, and that is a huge thing that we teach, at least in NATO stuff. Is you approach your berm, you identify your targets as why your targeting system is up here and you can see them.
Right.
Then you expose your turret, pop them, egress, and you continue to do that back and forth. I mean, it was flawless in my opinion. It was amazing.
I was pretty darn impressed. Now, I'm going to tell you straight up, my whole experience with military vehicles is from computer games, not from real life. So
Sure.
you can
Like
absolutely
World of
correct some.
Tanks.
Well, actually, War Thunder for myself. Uh,
Okay.
I got some buddies that play World of Tanks as well, so I'm familiar with it
Yeah.
as well. Now, it sounds like you're a game player yourself.
Yes. Yeah. I play World of Tanks every now and then, and they did a debriefing. I'm sure you've seen it. They debriefed the crew
Yes,
that
that's what I was going
disabled
to ask you
it.
next. Yeah. How much do you think you could
Yes.
really learn from these, from like a computer game about how to take out a
Yeah.
T90 with a Bradley?
Wow. I think that if it was, I would never suggest taking out a tank with your 25 millimeter cannon ever. I don't know if they just didn't have tow missiles. I just have a little prop from when I was in. This is the 25 millimeter, just the casing, right?
Right.
So you're going to have a warhead on the end of here, saber rounds probably. It's not a big round to do that damage. And you have a huge missile, the warhead's this big, that's designed to take this out. And you don't use it. I never saw the tow um, hatch pop up and turn in the actual active engagement mode.
Right.
So maybe they just didn't have them. I don't know what their capabilities are, but bravo.
Yeah, seriously, that was something. That was just amazing. Now, from you might be able to penetrate like the rear engine compartment of a T90 with a 25 millimeter, but he was shooting
Yeah.
at the front, the optics, and the turret, maybe the turret ring,
Right.
although I think possibly more the turret itself and the
Hmm.
optics. You said it was perfect. What was he shooting at by and large?
So I can only speculate, of course. I don't want to act like I know it all and was
Right,
there. I don't know what version that they had as far as what systems. We had Blue Force trackers, thermal imaging, all sorts of nice stuff when I was in that's now been even upgraded. So I would likely say that the gunner was probably engaging based on what the interview said. He's got a nice little optic that you can insert. It's like a monocle, pretty much, right?
right,
And he can look through there. He also could, if he has a different version, he could have where he's looking in like binoculars and magnifications. But it really looks like a video game, if you will. You're in a turret that's tiny, loud noises. You have headphones on, communication system, and you're just looking at a screen and targeting system. So, you know, is it real life? No, but is it going to feel similar? I would say absolutely yes. So I think to
crazy.
answer your question, I think he was probably nailing the where the turret traverse system was. Other because you could see it spinning. He obviously caused damage to that. To hit their optics would be quite hard unless you're hitting the above, and I didn't see that happening.
Right.
Um, but he may have used the infrared. They have little infrared placards that come out that light. It looks like he was tearing those up. Whatever he did, it seemed like he was just nailing that small gap between the turret and the body of the tank.
So right at the turret ring itself, yeah.
I
And
believe that's where he's hitting. Yeah.
well, and that turret went out of control. I mean, just started spinning around and around, and that did not look like it was under any kind of manual control to me. It looked like it
Mm-mm.
was just maybe the
Right.
motor just got kicked on and was running just constantly. And then, as I recall, the tank eventually hit a tree, and that's about when
Hmm.
the crew abandoned ship, as I recall. Um,
Right. And do you know about? I don't know about their turrets. I don't know if it has to be in a certain position for them to get out. The Bradley's similar. You have to get out the hatch if the turret is not in the forward position. Um, so I know that I saw the tree actually stop the main gun on it.
right.
I don't know if that was calculated or just happenstance.
Probably happenstance. That's did how
I
things
would
tend to
say
be.
so.
I don't not sure on the T90. I'm trying to remember from the schematics I've seen. I don't remember it having a big like turret bustle or anything like that off the back end.
Sure.
So I don't see any reason why, at least again, mental picture from what I'm remembering from schematics, that you couldn't get out of it with the turret in any position. But if he
Right.
had to, if the driver had to try and escape through the turret hatches,
Hmm.
that would be even more scary, I think, because that's what was under fire the entire time.
Right. And you have that thing spinning around. They're probably pretty dizzy when they got out of that, I'd
Oh my
say.
heavens, yes, crazy, crazy. So tell me a little bit about your. I've read your book. I've read it cover to cover. I enjoyed it very much. It's not a long
Thank you.
read.
Yep.
It's a small read, and it's a good one. And I consider it a story of faith and
Right.
relying on the Lord
Yeah.
to accomplish a very specific mission.
Sure.
Um, and you talk about being in Lviv and Kharkiv and a lot of these areas when they were still a lot less secure than it is now, and it's not exactly secure these days.
Right.
How much has your relationship with your wife's family gotten better since this incident?
Yes. My sister-in-law, who I actually went to get out, unbeknownst to me, and if she hears a translation of this, she might come after me. But she and I were not. She's the big sister. My wife is the little sister. And so, essentially, I go over there after meeting her here in the States, just on happenstance, if you will, and then
Right,
um, stay over there for goodness, 4 or 5 months, commuting and trying to get that worked out. Anyway, she didn't like me when, of course, I take her sister from her country and roots and
right.
everything. So that changed when you show up to kind of, in a way, I guess, save the day and get them out of there. Very, very strong. And what's great is that they have seen, I guess, kind of a strong male figure that loves God and looks to Him, right? So now they're kind of doing the same thing, right? Where, oh, okay, well, if he's following this, then maybe I should do the same thing. So that to me was the biggest blessing, along with purpose. I got a nice sense of purpose throughout the deal.
Well, it's a fascinating story, and I just knew that relationship had to have been strengthened by this. I mean, not
Did.
everybody's
Yeah.
brother-in-law would come into a war zone for them.
Right. Yeah. Well, I remember there's a part in that book where my dad, I definitely talked to him a lot, right, on just various things in life, big moves.
Yeah,
And I'm like, everyone's telling me not to do this. Is this what I'm supposed to do if I'm getting this much pushback? Because usually that's not the route that I need to go.
right.
And he said something to the effect of, you're going to be safer there in a war zone if you're doing what you're told to do than here doing what you're not supposed to do. And I was like, all right, that's simple.
Way to think about it, but doggone it, it's true because if you're following what God wants you to do, that's going to be what's going to get you taken care of. You're doing what the Lord needs you to do, one way or
Yeah,
the other.
that's right.
What about
You nailed it.
this? What about the situation over there? Your family still plugged into the situation? How people are feeling over in Kharkiv and in
Yeah.
Kiev and in Lviv, were areas where you were at?
Yes. Do you want to kind of know what I think the mindset is, or?
Yeah, absolutely.
Sure. So the mindset, I think southern Ukraine, even where my wife and I got engaged, was Crimean Peninsula, which is now occupied fully, really
Right.
since 2014, and they're having. It seems like they're having a little discomfort too. There's a lot of disinformation where they get the Russian news, everyone else in Ukraine get the Ukrainian news and Western news, and they're at odds. They just do not see that. They literally do not see the same things, so they don't
Yeah.
have the same mindset. Eastern Ukraine usually was kind of literally close to Russia. They speak the dialect and they see them as their brothers and sisters up until this time. Fully against it. They will. They will. If Russia takes over, heaven forbid, they will. They will leave that location, and that's a big deal because usually Western never really connected, like Lviv. They were never really connected with Russia. They sometimes don't even speak Russian on purpose
Right.
before this. So Eastern, you're seeing that too. People are learning Ukrainian more. I don't think they hate the Russians. They just don't understand why, and they will not give up, in my opinion, at all,
From what
even
I've
after this.
seen, yeah, yeah. From what I've seen, the Russians actually had a lot of goodwill over there in the east, or before they did this entire
Right?
invasion. And it seems
Yeah.
to me, at least, that they've burned that bridge pretty darn hard.
Yeah. forever for sure.
It's going to be
there is a
there won't
disconnect.
be a reunification, at least in that regard.
Yeah,
But it seems like
absolutely.
overall, from the information I'm seeing, the people in the East are really more connecting with the people in the West of Ukraine.
Yeah, yeah, they are, and they are fighting still mentally, and what whatever they're speaking on. It's really strange to hear what you're hearing come out of St. Petersburg or Moscow, just news wise. It's just very, dare I say, almost like a genocide type of commentary at this point. Like, let's get rid of them. And I don't
Yeah,
know why. I don't. Maybe that's just what happens when you do the wrong thing and don't like someone. You just have to switch your mind to that. But regardless, it seems that most Ukrainians are steadfast. They're not going anywhere and they're willing to die for it, clearly. I mean, people are moving back. My sister in law goes back every so often. It's hard to get
right.
my father and mother in law to even leave. So they're pretty stubborn. It's their
Right.
country.
They don't want to. They don't want to give up their freedom. You know,
Yeah,
from what the common pattern I see in people that have been in Russian spheres is that once they get their real, true freedom, they realize exactly what they have been missing out on, and they don't want to go back once they get
that's
out.
very wise. Yeah, I think you're exactly right.
So overall, the situation. You've been watching the news now. You were in active military service some time ago. So, are you surprised by the prevalence of drones on the battlefield now?
Yes, I am. Well, as Cab Scouts, we would have these pretty dinky now at this point, big old loppy drones with rail systems that look more like small aircraft.
Right.
But that's up until 2014. So the the availability of drones and even these first person goggle drones is just it has changed everything. I guarantee you that NATO forces are going to the books of military tactics and rearranging absolutely everything because you have a $1,000 piece of equipment with maybe a $300 warhead that can take out a multi-million-dollar piece of equipment. We've never had anything like that in the past.
Yeah, previous weapon systems could be in the thousands upon thousands to tens or hundreds or even $1 million weapons.
Right.
Your typical cruise missile is not going to be something you buy at Walmart prices. So
You're right.
the in fact there was just last night or this morning another attack that on another oil depot over in Russia. Now I don't know what your if you've got much information on what's going on that end. Have you been seeing this pattern with the oil depot strikes being carried out by Ukraine with drones? And what are your thoughts on those?
So I know a little, like I get a lot of my information from you actually, as far as a little bit sooner. So I'm not gonna, I really religiously watch what you have to put out because it's solid.
Thank you.
Um, and I appreciate that, or I wouldn't watch it. So what I do hear is the back end of things. I do hear, and I guess I'll be a little ambiguous on who I speak with, but there are people who I'm plugged in with who know the underground things of what's actually occurring and what the objectives are. And I think you're going to continue to see anything that helps a tank move oil, okay, or
Right.
anything that helps the grinding of war to continue. Those things, bridges, everything's going to continue. People are going to also not feel safe that they feel are orchestrators of the war. Um, and I think a lot of it's going to happen within Russia itself, not from Ukraine to Russia, but within. So I think we have a lot more of that we're going to start seeing. Maybe just sit tight and watch it. So
Just watch the march of this military as they retake their lands one little bit at a time, right?
right, and I hope they do. It's been a lot longer of a battle than I think a lot of people thought it would be, but I don't know. I don't think I want to answer the question, will they win? I have the same opinion you do on should the United States continue. I think
Right.
for a few reasons. I try to take myself out of the equation, right? It's hard to do that. But,
Right.
statistically, Russia has not been our ally, okay? And we now have a beautiful moment in time to adversely affect our enemy, okay, or at least our perceived enemy, without American lives being lost. It's just cash, and we're spending that on all sorts of things anyway. If you can undermine someone who's going to be an existential threat in the future to us, has always been seen that way that I've been around. Um, I think it's the right decision to continue, just from a military standpoint.
At least it makes sense to me. Yeah, I mean the overall situation as far as that type of aid and the relationship between Russia and the U.S. The fact that is that they were the historical bad guys, and they
Right.
have shown to be the exact same people today as they were before the fall of the Soviet Union in 1991. So I don't see any real
You're
difference
right.
between them. What about
That's wise.
what did you mentioned to me that you started a podcast? Actually, tell me a little about that.
Yeah. So one of your channels, the Business Basics or something similar to one of those channels that I hear and see you on, you guys were saying you were seeing things in the comment section about um, this whole thing that I can't do it. You can't, no one can just jump on and make money on that platform or be successful at it. And I have a few friends who are like-minded, and we just have been talking about this for a while. One is Anthony, and he has managed successful YouTube channels in the past, so he does a lot of the behind-the-scenes editing. So we just jumped it off. It's in the very beginning stages, but it's real guys, real talk, just one word, and we just break down basic things. Like if we feel like there's a topic of discussion that people would like to speak on, which was
Mm-hmm.
AI last time, we
Right,
just we take it from a, hey, I'm not a scientist and I don't have anything in biomechanics, but here's how I think about it. It's
right.
very informal for sure,
So how
but
would
it's a
people
good
find you on
listen.
that podcast? Where's it at?
So you would just go on to YouTube and type in Real Guys Real Talk. We have a few hundred subscribers right now. Jump on there, see what we got. We'll continue to put out a lot more. We've got even better cameras and lighting, and so you're going to see a lot more of a professional setting as we rake in the funds and figure this out. But it'll be a fun ride to just hear three guys talk about real things. So real guys, real talk.
Awesome. Sounds wonderful. I'll be
Thank you for
checking
that
that one out
plug.
myself.
Well,
Hey, you know what?
I appreciate it.
I'm not a problem at all. More to the point, you mentioned it, and I wanted to make sure that people would know how to find you and hear more of what you have to say. Now, you
That's
mentioned
awesome.
AI on the battlefield. What's your thoughts?
Well, it's amazing. I think it's very dangerous for a executive decision of taking of life, right? But as far as calculating the nexuses up until that point, I think it's amazing. I mean, it can do the back and forth computations within milliseconds that would take us or a team of people a long time. It could find best routes to this location, or and we're using it already. I mean, we've been using it when you have these smart fire and forget weapons that we're
Right.
seeing with the Javelin missile system. So we have AI, but to have it this advanced where it's learning, adapting, I think that with drones, we'll see a battlefield that has a lot less human direct input, I would say.
Excellent. Sounds. I think that relying alone on the AI is a bad idea. But if you have AI
Right.
enabled or assisted decision making going on, that seems like it's a much better work for me, at least in my opinion. I'm an IT guy from way back, and I know that computers. They always say that, well, the computer did it. No, the computer does whatever the human being tells it to do. Somebody somewhere, either the
Right.
hardware designer, the manufacturer, the programmer, or the user, determine that the computer is going to act that way. And that means that at some point in time, it's going to fail
Right.
spectacularly. And that's kind of my concern. But if as long as there's a human being who can be like, okay, that, checking those decisions, I'm pretty happy with that. I think it's a
That's
good
so
app.
interesting. That's interesting you say that. I was thinking about before I came on, what about the Bradley? Do I remember all the stations that I was in so I could articulate it? And we have on our even just simple, right? To complement what you said, the missile system that we use. has an end button. So if I fire that guy and I go, wait a minute, that's a friendly, I can hit the button, it stops. Okay, the wire cuts, the warhead lays on the ground, and it's an unexploded ordnance. And I think that's super important as we just amplify that down to, hey guys, we've got real weapons out there with machines making the decisions. Or computers. Let's have a failsafe every time, no matter what, and
It's a
whatever
vital
that
piece.
takes.
Yeah,
Yeah, you're
a
right.
vital piece of that the whole chain, as far as I'm concerned. In this case, it would be the reverse kill chain, so that if you decide you don't want to kill it, you can still stop it.
I like that terminology. That's good.
What else? What else is your as you're seeing the situation on the battlefield? You've already seen a Bradley taking out Russia's premier top end tank.
Sure.
Is there other Western hardware that could really make a big difference to Ukraine?
Right. That we're not using. I think that the whole F-16 thing, right? Like that was way overdue. I personally have some beliefs that we were probably going to allow them to have it anyway. We just didn't have. We don't want them to know the timeline, specifically
Right,
Russia. So you just kind of say that they're not going to get it, but really it's in the works, and it takes a lot of time to do this. Cross train, everything's different there. So definitely, air superiority wins wars, in my opinion. So if you cannot create a dome of protection for yourself and stop what's coming in, then I think anything else is fair game. So I would hope that we can use anti-air any amount, manual or just install stations from any country, leave it there, get a dome up so that we are at least stopping 90%, not this 50, 40% we're seeing right now.
right,
And then one of the other things is just this kind of what we spoke on earlier, javelins, right? They are just anything like that. Javelins are just taking out multi-million-dollar pieces of equipment that are feared. And now it's scary to be in a tank. I mean, I would have never thought that, but I mean, I'm seeing these T-72s just pop a top, from a guy with a clue system just sitting there pushing a button.
yeah.
It's
Or
amazing.
it's insane how much the Russian equipment was feared by the West, and yet when it really comes down
Yeah.
to it, it pops its top just like any other piece of equipment.
That is wise. I know that some of my guys from my unit and just in general have talked about how concerned we were with Russia. That's who we were a lot of times preparing for when we did large scale missions and training was a Russian, possibly China, adversary coming after us in North Korea, of course. So to see Russia, who we feared at some point to some level or had respect for, it's sad. I mean, I am very disappointed in their capabilities.
It's almost scary how much we over prepared for it. I mean,
Yeah, you're right.
as I saw somebody say, Russians always oversell their equipment, Americans always undersell it. And yeah,
That's
it seems
wise.
to be proving true in that the capabilities we're seeing out of our 40, 50-year old equipment is outdoing Russia's best. I mean, I'll even use the crazy example of the M2 Browning machine gun that took out a KH-101 missile. They actually showed that just
Wild.
recently. So now, obviously, there's a bunch of factors there, and
Sure.
I didn't. The video wasn't that good, so I don't know how much it was taken out. But still, the idea that the Ukrainians are taking effectively our junk
Right.
and making it into this amazing war-winning machine is always impressive to me.
Yeah. Yeah. I think the right mix of will, they're fighting for their freedom in life. Okay. They've seen their family members die, just civilians plastered, regardless of what's on the media. I've seen it. I've seen my father and mother in law's apartment literally was hit with a missile. So, or artillery rather. So, this is happening. This is a real thing. There's clearly no threat coming from that area, their apartment complex. I'm certain of that.
Yeah,
And
I'm sure.
that
Sure, it
is,
was such a big military target.
yeah. So they came in and anyway, they stormed it and took his hunting rifle. But anyway, so it's just it's very clear the delineation between how a country who's invading and doesn't feel a sense of purpose and someone who's protecting and does. And you match that with Western equipment. Only thing with Western equipment, I think, is maybe the terrain we weren't prepared for. Abrams is very heavy. Even the Bradley's pretty heavy. And the Bradley's a very tall vehicle. So these mud factors and slosh you hear about, that's a real thing. And as long
Yeah.
as they calculate it, and I saw them repairing a Bradley's track on the middle of a street on one of the videos. So they know what they're doing. They
Right.
know how to, they don't just get stuck and that's it. They fix it, move on. And that's what we want to see because now, I feel like our money is being used wisely at that point.
Sounds perfect. Hey, I know your time's precious, and I really appreciate you taking
Sure.
the time to talk with me today. Before we sign off, is there anything else you want to tell people, either about yourself, your book, your thoughts on Ukraine, your thoughts on the world? What do you have? Anything else?
Yeah, I think I just really appreciate you having me on here. Really, I'm avid listener and watcher of your channel. Anytime I can, I think it's great content. You do your due diligence. You get at least two reliable sources before you push stuff out, and we don't see that. I think we need to see more of that, and that's why people like yourself are so successful in that. Is because we're not getting it somewhere else. And the podcast that I do, it's going to be fun and great. It's not going to be some official thing where you're actually learning probably valuable
Right.
information like on your end. But feel free. You can grab the book on Amazon. It's Escaping Ukraine. I've got it right next to me because I'm there. You go. And give it a read. It's an hour and a half read. At the end of it, it's going to have a GoFundMe deal where you can, if you feel inclined, you feel moved by the story, it's not going to go to me. It's going to go to rebuilding my father, mother-in-law's apartment / his garage and everything. So
Right.
a little bit goes a long way. But do what you feel you're led. And mainly, I just say, if you hear someone speaking negatively about the Ukrainian war, which we're spending tons of money, right? Maybe just step back, educate yourself so that you can just say, hey, look, if you're willing to listen to me, I think there's a reason why we're doing it. If anything, it's we're saving our guys now. Okay, they're taking the ultimate sacrifice. We're giving them their funds. It's a minuscule amount of what our Department of Defense said. We need to get all these weapons. All these Bradleys are old. Trust me, I've seen the motor pools. These are old weapons that takes tons of money to keep running,
Yeah.
and we're just kind of like, all right, you can have these. Good luck.
Yeah.
So
Let me add a little bit of
that's my
paint over
message.
that spot right there, and we'll
Yeah,
send it over to Ukraine.
yeah. Screw on some reactive armor. I mean, that is the wildest thing. I've never seen that before.
Oh, yeah, it's just crazy. Well,
But
thanks
thank
again
you,
for your.
Brian.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.